How's it going? It's gonna get heavy. We're gonna start the first in the series of videos where I teach you a riff that I love. This riff is from Dancers to a Discordant System by Meshuggah. One of the heaviest bands, I think, on planet Earth. Arguably one of the most influential bands for modern metal, period. We're going to go for the intro riff, maybe a little bit more, depending on how I feel. It is an awesome riff. To play it, you're going to need an 8-string. So if you don't, you can probably get away with a 7 for the first part. The rest you're going to need an 8, so sorry in advance if you don't have one. If you just want to watch it, it's cool. I'm going to play the riff regular first, and then I'm going to go over how to play it. If you like it, I'm going to leave a link to a video of the song somewhere down there, via Spotify or YouTube. And I'm also going to leave a link to tabs. Not made by me, made by somebody else, sourced from Ultimate Guitar. The tabs that I used to learn this song. Ultimate Guitar is an awesome resource if you haven't checked it out yet. Definitely go check it out. Songster too, I guess. So yeah, let's get started. Dancers to a Discordant System by Meshuggah. Hi. You just went through a lot. We just went through a lot. That little section took way too long to record because that song is hard to play clean. So I got a slowed down version where you get to hear all my cool little mistakes and I get to teach you how to do these sorts of things. I'm going to talk about these things and kind of break down exactly what's happening. We're going to start with the intro. Oh, also, Premiere. This is what happens under the hood. So you get backstage views. It's not that cool. Starting here, we have a very simple chord that we're arpeggiating to start things out. We have a 9th fret on the B string, we have 12th on the G, and an open E string there underneath my first finger. The hardest part about this is keeping that E string clean. It's very easy for your first finger to just lay down a little bit and mute the whole thing. So same thing goes for your pinky, actually. This is a very vertical chord. You want to make sure that your fingers are going as straight down as you possibly can, so that when you do it, you're not, muting everything. It requires very good finger discipline. So try it out. See how you do. It is 9th fret B, 12th fret G, open E string, tabs in the description. So here's what it sounds like slowed down, about 50% speed. Simple enough, right? That's all there is to it. You just repeat that over and over again. I forget the exact amount of times. Feel free to count them out. I might count them out over here. If not, then just keep playing until it stops. Easy enough, right? So past that point, I don't need to show you all this fun stuff. You can just see that sick fade. Yeah. So moving into the next chunk where everything interesting happens. We're going to start off on the E string. So just to kind of preface what's about to happen, you are spending the majority of your time on the 6th fret of the E, A, and D strings, the 10th fret of the E, A, and D strings, and the 8th fret and 11th frets of the E and D strings, respectively. In case you're wondering, respectively means in that order. So we have very few frets to work with. The difficulty in this song comes from the complicated order that they come in. So even though it's only technically 3 frets, 4 frets, it's still really hard to navigate. My hand in the video, I'll show you exactly what's happening here, does a lot of rotation. It's the same patterns over and over again, but it can be difficult to discern when they loop. Part of learning how to play guitar, if you're watching this, you probably don't need to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway, so deal, is that you need to be able to recognize patterns. You need to be able to recognize them and take advantage of them wherever you can. Scales, just patterns. Strumming, patterns. Literally in the name, patterns. Once you've got them down, most things aren't as difficult as you would immediately assume. And fast music is just simple patterns played really fast. This is no different. It still has a pattern even if you can't immediately hear it. So let me show you what the pattern is. We're going to start off with a pretty deep bend on the 6th fret. Tab says half step. I'd say that's semi-accurate. I think I'd sit between a quarter and a half. It just needs to sound dissonant. That's about it. Dissonant means bad. I'll put an actual definition over here somewhere. Anyway, moving on. Deep bend on the 6th fret to start of the E string. And then our pinky's going to hit the 10th fret of the D. And also, this is a very first finger pinky dominant kind of song. I use almost nothing but those for this riff and the one immediately following. So here it is, half speed. So right out the gate, you notice there's a lot of movement, even though my hand itself isn't moving from these frets. So we start off with the deep bend, and then we go into an exact invert of what we were just playing. So instead of 6E, 10D, now it is 10D, 10E, 6D. So one more time just to show you. I'm going to slow this down a little bit more too, because I feel like that will help a little bit. So it goes 6, 10, 0. A lot of open E strings in this particular song. 10, 6 from E to D. And then we end up with a 6 to 10 on the E to A. So one more time. Here's all of what I just described. Bend. Open. 10. Sounds like I made a slight error there. I might have accidentally clipped the A string on the way down. That's the other part too. Again, this is a hard song. Like getting a semi-clean take of this was not what I would call super easy. And if you can play it better, please God, show me in the comments. I would love to see somebody playing this better than me. The goal of this is not to show off. It is to share cool stuff. So share with me your cool stuff, please. So that is the first chunk there where we're going through all the 6th and 10th fret things. A little bit of a hang on the open string there. Then it goes 10th fret E to 6th fret A. And then it's open E to 8th fret E to 11th fret D. So as you can see there, I didn't have to change too much of the shape of my hand. I just moved it down 2 frets. It actually gets a smaller gap because 6 to 8 is a bigger spacing than 10 to 11 because math is simple. So 8 to 11 here, there's 2 versions of this 8-11 stretch. There's this one, which is just flat, no bending. And then the next one will be a bent 8, similar to the very first 6 that you just saw in the beginning of this. So I'm going to let this play through a little bit and kind of talk about what's happening. So there, it was just the same exact things we had already played, but I'm moving through them at a slightly different pace. So when I said that this repeats itself a lot and you got to look for where the pattern repeats, we're not there yet. Like I think we're about halfway through it. And there are a lot of things in this that make it very easy to get lost. So if I back up just a touch. So there is the bent 8th fret that I had mentioned a little bit earlier there. That one is the harbinger. I think we're about 3/4 of the way through now. The ending of this is once you hear where it starts over again, it'll make a lot of sense. I hope. I promise. Well, I promise that I hope. So right there, that open string that sounds kind of like a foghorn when it's slowed down to 25% is the harbinger of the end. That is the last note before the pattern repeats itself again. I believe it lines up to about 5 bars. I'll double check. I'll correct myself over here somewhere about what exactly this is. Now, when you are going through it and playing it, it's going to get weird to loop. You need to take your time with it. You need to be really, really slow when you're playing through this. The first few times I ran through it, I thought I was going to die of frustration because I tried way too hard to play it way too fast. It's really difficult to keep clean. Your left hand needs to lay down a lot. You need to keep your fingers in contact with more strings than you might initially assume. Your first finger's job is to mute anything below its fingertips. Actually, your left hand's job is that. And then your right hand has to pick up the slack wherever it can't do anything. So anything above your first, your fingertips on your left hand, it's your right hand's job. If you're advanced enough to play this, you should already know this. But all the same, I wanted to make that very clear. One of the hardest things about this is muting. We'll talk about the alternate picking section in a second. Because you can't downpick this thing. I can tell you that right now. And if you can, good for you. But I think that would be way harder than it needs to be. So there's that initial 6th fret bend again. And then we're going to repeat that a few more times. I feel like it repeats, if I'm just guessing based off of the length of the clip here, probably 3 times, maybe 4 times, before we shift into the one that's an octave lower than this one. So that's pretty much all there is to talk about for this riff. The next chunk of it is a much heavier version of the exact same patterns. Let's talk briefly about the picking before I move on to that, though. So the picking parts are not any more complicated than you'd imagine them to be, unless you were imagining them to be very complicated. A lot of alternate picking. A lot of alternate picking. This is what I would consider a relatively tricky song to nail down, alternate picking wise, because you have a lot of string skipping to deal with. So you'll notice right out the gate that I have 2 downstrokes. That's an upstroke followed immediately by a down. And then I have an up where I have to skip over the A string here to get back to the E. That is hard. I'm pretty sure in the recording underneath this that I have a mistake in there somewhere. I did that so many times. Please forgive me. Yeah, like right there, for example. So as you're moving through it, though, you have to keep the picking patterns tight. You don't want your pick to leave the string too very often open. And by that, I mean you don't want to go too far away from it. You have to stay close. The closer you are to the strings, the easier it is to do the things that you're trying to actually do. The less distance you need to travel, the faster you can get there, right? Sort of like if the grocery store was just outside your house. You'd go there all the time just because you could. You want to do that for this. So as you move through it, it's not really anything that you wouldn't already expect it to be. It's exactly the same over and over again, just like the other one. Once you make it through the first third or so of this, the rest of it just repeats. And then what comes from there is practice. And practice is where everybody usually falls off on this sort of stuff. It's where I did for a while. This song took me probably collectively a couple months to learn just because I would pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. So hopefully those of you who watched this all the way through will have something to play along to, and you will not have the same willpower issues that I had. If you enjoy this, I will do a whole cover of the song because there's a lot more to it. The heavy version of this, again, is exactly the same as the light version, so I'm not going to cover that. It's just do the same thing again, 2 strings lower, 2 frets lower. And that's all. So if you have any issues with playing it, feel free to shoot me a message. I do private lessons, and I'd be more than happy to teach you this person to person as opposed to through Premiere and YouTube. So drop me a line. Let's see what we can't do for you. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the video. Play along to the 50% speed, and I'll see you in the next one.